Sounds you find in different ways, you know. And then we're talking about the rules. You know, are there any rules in your process? Are there rules that you
like? Do I follow rules?
That you follow, or habits?
I definitely have habits. Rules. I don't have a rule-based practice. Like, there's no like. There is no rule. I can definitely say that. It's wild, if anything, the actual process and kind of like chance-based in many ways too. But habits for sure. I'm learning like how to work with my better habits, I guess. Like I found recently that always using the first arrangement I make of a song, the first time I jam through it, even if I end up cutting a lot from that, that's the way to do it. If I erase the first jam and try to make a better one, like that's a bad habit. Where like I don't get it, it's not as good. It's better on the first try. For whatever reason. I mean, I guess they could talk about improv with that. Just maybe it's because it's like you're hearing it thought out more in a live way. This is what's pleasing about like watching Dustin play too, you know? I'm just trying to follow, that's maybe a rule, but I'm not gonna follow it strictly, but in general.
Right, it's something you notice that you do.
Yeah.
And that it works.
Yeah, surprisingly in a way, you know?
It's like trusting your gut in a way, like they always tell you in test taking, you know, trust your first answer, you know, your gut. There's something about them, because then the second one is like, you're trying to do a bet. Maybe you're beginning just, you know, more intellectualize what you did.
It's like you've already then ID'd what you like, and you're like trying to focus on that, and maybe you were wrong right off the bat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. You don't know. That's what
you don't know yet.
You don't know enough yet, right? Yeah. So you haven't lived with it enough in that way.
It's like more research is needed first before knowing what was good and not good. It's been cool with working with Ryan. Like we were just jamming long sessions to 4-track cassette actually. So we kind of have time limitations, and there's other limitations with using that type of setup, and then editing and like adding back to that. And there's something about that, the economy of that, the way it forces you to cut, you know, is cool.
And so once it's opened up, once you begin to move in one song and it begins to unfold, and it does this over time, and the time away from it and then coming back to it, or I'm curious about the learning of what a song is, that again you stick with that first one and then find out a little bit.
Then I'll like stick with it. Maybe I'll edit it then, maybe I'll come back to it. I generally have a way of like laying off of the tracks for a while when they've been like worked, and then coming back to it, either finding that it's okay, finding that there's changes to be made or something. But I'm also trying to work a lot more simply now in the computer, because I'm committed at this point to working in studios to finish everything. The studios sound better than the plugins, because the plugins, it's just different. I like the way the studio sounds. So that's been kind of a nice constraint that I can keep in mind. It's like, I don't need to fully develop the delay in this song right now. because that can be fully developed at the end, like when it should be. So it keeps me from, like focusing it weird.
You know,
yeah, it's
you're-
more
you're-
formulaic, I guess.
Yeah, you-
take it
yeah.
to this place, stop it, finish it later.
Right, you got to a place that it needs to get in order to go to the studio.
Exactly.
The next place.
Which is kind of like a clean place, actually. It's like an undecorated state of the song, which is like always a cool process, because just by nature, if I'm working on a jam, I'll build it up from whatever. It gets to a point, and then I'll start throwing a lot of the effect sounds that I like on it, delay, and reverb sound that I like, filters, high pass filters and low pass filters, gates and stuff, and I'll like get a production idea of what I can like kind of hear it sounding like. But then to take it to the studio, I take all that stuff away because we're gonna remake that with better tools. And so as you take all that away, it becomes kind of it's a really good process for me to do, because you find a lot of little errors that you've been covering with effects that are actually in how you've constructed it. Like sometimes just actual loops that have a little snippet of sound that you don't want in there that you never heard before. And that's when I clean all that stuff up. And the songs just sound really skeletal and sparse, and then we have room to fill again.
So back to the live music and the playing it these days, and the way people are moving with it, and how the live shows unfold. Again, can you speak to what you're noticing, and just speaking about to the headspace and the more embodied.
I feel like, I've talked a little bit about how it's been moving. I get like how it progresses from doubt to a convincing moment to a more heady moment. I don't know, I haven't played a lot of shows recently, so I'm only kind of recalling the one show in New York recently, which I kind of described already, I think. I'm interested in trying to soon do a show here where we did those parties recently. Were you at that party?
The one where the leftovers were that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, you were there.
But I think there was another one that I wasn't.
No,
at.
you weren't. You were just at. That was the last one.
That was the last one. Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna do another party here, and I'd be so keen to play this music. Maybe even do the like release show or something for this music here, because I clearly tied to this space, and I'm interested in what happens in domestic spaces with heady content. Like I was talking about earlier, how in a domestic space there's just dampening usually, kind of like it's less critique, but heightening the place so that it comes back to the same level as the sound studio, and so that would be interesting to me to do. I feel like that is the ultimate gaining of trust from the audiences, those house parties where all the symbols and all the signs point in different ways, but people still find a way to get down and have a good time, not without some
Right. So
without some gestures of hospitality, but
how it can fill the space and allow for such different experiences for people to go through it.
Exactly.
In such different
how
ways.
it can be so dynamic of an environment, but allow for a kind of not expected in that situation, but the wanted reaction, which is to dance to great music. You know what I mean? It's almost like the idea with those house parties is that despite everything, you'll feel good about dancing tonight. You know what I mean?
Right. Somehow it has that ability.
Yeah, exactly. There is no club space here that is well liked. And maybe it's because there's not a lot of thought put into club design and making an interesting club experience in a techno setting and a dance setting that's unrelated to like hooking up. It's more related just to dancing and music, that doesn't exist in Baltimore as far as I'm concerned. So I feel like the only way to keep that type of thing alive is to bring it into, it's like the Renaissance, like bring the knowledge into whatever space necessary, even if it's a house. I'm still making music constantly. This is a roundabout way to get to this. I'm still making music right now, but I'm not feeling like I'm focusing on an album at the moment. So there's a different intention in the songs. This one, all the demos I was making were with the intention of making something coherent, but also kind of dynamic. And so I guess you look for that in every sound. I mean, that's why I think I was drawn to so many of the jazz samples, the horns, because of the like human back there. You can hear it because it's like an air sound. And I feel like that's why I was drawn to working with Angel too, with her voice, not just the singing parts, but also like the breathing parts and the other weird sounds. Like this song has a lot of breathing stuff in it. And that stuff ends up kind of being buried, but it lands like this vaguely human, cyber-human, this reference to human is in there because of it. And so I feel like what happened is that every sound is kind of working towards the same goal, one part of the larger idea of the record, which you never have in mind fully, but I guess it's just about selection. It's about taste in a way, not just like my taste, but selecting a taste and following it.
So what would you say about the album as a whole, how it builds upon each song,
from track to track?
Yeah, how that builds, just like maybe you could speak about the arc of the album and the arc of a song.
Yeah. Think about that for a second. I mean, this song is kind of a high point, and it comes in. This is the fourth song, and there's something I like about this song. Happens. There's other ones that get close to its kind of hype level, but aren't really there. And I feel like it feels appropriate as a listen. It feels like you've gone further somehow when the high point comes before the halfway point. Do you know what I mean? Because it like opens up a whole different set of dynamics for the second half.
More than the second half.
More than the second half, where it's like if you're not going to reach that level again, then there's a lot more subtlety to be dealt with if you remove that extreme,
Right, you don't wait to the middle. It can open up that much more. You set things up a little quicker, and you take this jump, and then that opens up. You have a lot more time to explore that.
Yeah, and I found that like playing the beginning of my sets in this order too kind of works in a nice way, because after this song it's kind of like enough convincing has been done, and so now you can just play the jams, whether they're ones that you can't move your body to and that are weird, they're ones that are noisy. It's like, I don't know, I feel like I'm more comfortable after this point somehow, I mean, I think that one thing that's happening with the performances when they're going well is a point happens where it switches from like this mimicry thing starts to happen. It like becomes strange enough that like the audience can start to act out. And sometimes I think that happens after I really break the kind of wall of like the performing the music, and I start to do other things, whether it's drinking or anything, any of those gestures that come off as clearly inserted, like they're clearly deliberate, like like if I drink out of the vase, like it's clearly I brought that vase, you know what I mean? Like if it's a fruit or something, clearly that's there. So it's prop oriented, but I don't really think of it in terms of theater in that way. So I don't think that prop is the right word for them. It's more that those things are little objects.
They're accompaniments.
It's like once you activate them, you start to build a sculpture the way that like Jeremy Sigwood would talk about performance, action event type of artwork, where it's about it's kind of nothing, but it is something when you see it. It's hard to talk about, and it's also, I think, hard to document because it's like really subtle. It's really a way of communicating that's so specific and relies on so many of the senses and kind of a real point of view, like a two eyes in a room point of view, that I feel like it's hard to really get what happens across in video.
The gesture, though, are there? And we've spoken about a number of them. I was wondering if there are those that you're more sort of leaning towards these days, gesturally, or what has been worked best for you in the past.
I mean, right now I'm liking drinking out of this like kind of human anthropomorphic vase. Do you know the vase? It's that one right there.
I saw that on the I filmed that on the table from the feast.
Yes.
Yeah, very
it's such
human.
An interesting shape.
Yeah,
and
I
so
agree.
That's really the only object I've been interacting with recently because I like how it's mysterious. I like how it references the human body. I like how drinking out of a vessel that references the human body starts to tap into tons of archetypes.
It's a vase, so you put plants in there, things grow out of it.
Yes.
You know, there's a certain kind of nurturing.
Yes, but at the same time, drinking out of it, a DJ drinking on stage is not a weird thing to do. Also, that's why I like that one, because it's like ultimately a completely acceptable gesture that you see every time you see someone play music, but it's warped, and I like the economy of the gesture for that reason. Where like when I like crush a plum or something or a peach, that is not something that you see on a stage ever, and so it comes as more. It's like more cut in, you know.
Right. I want to get back real quickly to the mimicry you were talking about before, because it reminds me of Luce Rigori, the philosopher, linguist, psychoanalyst, who speaks of ludic mimicry and just like in this way of mimicking something to ultimately bring something out. Like you're a child, you remember repeating your brothers, sisters, or parents' words, word for word, and everything they say, you just repeat it until eventually, usually comes to laughter. Bring somebody out. The mimicry. There's something just somehow in there that if you do it long enough, it can easily move towards that laughter. And I wonder how that, because you spoke about it too, of the mimicry, and then somehow that there's something inviting.
Yeah, totally.
That happens there.
I like that analogy. That's cool. I know what you're talking about. You mean like repeating everything someone's saying? Is that what you're talking about? Yes.
Yes.
I haven't done that in years and years and years.
I haven't done that in years and years and years. All right.
Yeah, it does. It's true. There is something about that. But what I feel like happens is that it's like somehow the audience starts. The last show in New York, it went well. People were moving their bodies in really strange ways by this part of the set, the latter part, and it makes total sense because it's a strange rhythm. But so there's like a trust that happened there, which I'm honored to have. And then there's also play, and I feel like that's like what I always want to happen, But you can only make that happen in like a way that's important to people if there's first not a trust. You know what I mean? Like it can't, if you just, a DJ that's just a party DJ can go in and there's no doubt from the beginning what you're gonna get and how it's gonna go. And so I'm interested in first allowing for that doubt so that can be kind of dealt with. And then from there you kind of are on like a level plane, which is really fun.
Well, that's beautiful because again, the doubt brings in a certain kind of, an element of curiosity, or investing in something. What is this? Again, you slowly you warm up a little bit, and then, like you say, it's very interesting the permissions that are given in terms of moving, or these ways that they give themselves over to it. after having won that trust in some way. So to begin with a kind of uncertainty or doubt is a really nice thing, and I think it probably sustains itself too. That it's always, and what I like about the word doubt too, people sometimes see it as a bad thing, but this wavering, which is movement, which is important to have this
Yeah, I
or
think
that.
so too. I mean, that's how things kind of stay active. Otherwise, it's just like, I don't know. I've always found doubt to be good, for the most part. Speculation, at first, can prove to be the right way. Do you know what I mean?
Well, our language tells this to us, and this one of my favorite words is adhesion, to adhere. And we often have this sense that it's a rigorous thing, like you adhere to a principle or adhere to a rule. But if you tie it back, there's few words that it shares the same root with, and hesitate is one, reservation is another, to have reserve, so there's something about a beautiful,
It's conservative in a way.
a kind of adhesion that happens precisely because of this uncertainty, a more fullness of possibilities, something that's not completely defined, and so it's very open. There's a great openness to it.
Yeah, that's what it's ultimately making it best thing that I guess any art type of thing can do is be an open kind of like an open object. If it's an object or an open event, if it's an event, so that like no one likes didactic art where you leave knowing. No one wants to leave knowing. You know what I mean? Everyone wants to leave with a couple opinions and a couple of questions. That's like the ideal place to be in, So
I agree.
yeah, I feel like I can achieve that with this, for better or worse, I think.